All right. So thanks to Skylar, we've been getting a lot of action on our Instagram account, the Voices River City Instagram.
Thank you, Skylar.
Yeah, I thought that the nudes would be off-putting, but apparently people are loving them.
People like them. Yeah.
Who doesn't
I get
like a
at
good...
least like 5 friend requests a week.
Yeah, who doesn't like a good noodle bowl?
Yeah.
And do they say, show us your tits? Is that what they're usually sending you, Shannon?
No, it's usually just like someone.
No.
It's someone that's like requesting my friendship, and then I'm like, who the fuck is this? And I click on them, and then it says follows Voices River City, and then I send them a picture of my tits.
Right.
Oh, obvious. Okay, so that's included in the membership package, or just the follow?
I mean, just the follow.
No Patreon required for the nudes?
I mean,
okay.
No,
that's pretty
free the nipple,
generous.
right?
Yeah.
We offer Skylar's nudes for free on Instagram, and
Right.
then
That's
everybody else's
most
nudes
of-
come with a click. So
That's most of our
that
Instagram
button,
account,
and then
yeah.
you get nudes.
Smash that follow button.
So this attention we got a couple days ago, it had nothing to do with anyone sending any nudes though. There's this Instagram account called Sticky Sacramento, sticky_Sacramento, where apparently they go around town taking photos of stickers that they see up on things. And they took a picture of our California sticker. It was up somewhere. I don't know why it would be up out in public. I don't know who would do such a thing.
Yeah, whoever's vandalizing all of these signs and stuff with these California stickers, please stop.
We're offended.
We're mortified.
We're scared that we might lose our position in Podcasters of America. Anyway, so Sticky Sacramento posted this, and then they added us at Voices River City, #California, and Garlfield. That's Garfield with an L. Garlfield. Okay. ... What a hateful hashtag. Geez. So I think that's a new fan.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't even know what that means.
Feels like positive feedback to me.
Yeah.
I hope they're listening right now.
I have no clue what that means. I just want everybody to know.
What? Garlfield?
Like this could be in a language that I don't speak. That's how much I just am not tracking at all what's happening.
Oh, because you don't well, you've seen the California graphic.
I have, but I don't know what the Garlfield.
Yeah, that's why this makes no sense to you. I understand.
And I only like vaguely know, like I know that California exists, but there could be like some subtext there that I'm totally missing.
We did an episode a few months ago called California, where we made fun of these far-right groups that were threatening to leave California. And in that, it was a bunch of sort of kind of foothilly type state of Jefferson folks that were like, I'm sick and tired of California and we're going to get out of here with all these liberals. And we thought it was very funny. And one of our listeners, Brian McComas, ended up, as Shannon just showed us, creating this image of all of these sort of side views, kind of
like
sort
the
of
Mount Rushmore of
like
communists.
a Mount Rushmore of leftists throughout history. And then he added at the end of it
Garlfield
illustration of the outline of California with the face of Garfield poking out of it. And I assume he's a communist because he hates Mondays.
Okay.
I don't know. Or this is maybe a thing that's just been done for a long time. But anyway, after Brian made that image for us, we're like, oh my God, we have to make a sticker. So this has become like a thing associated with Voices River City now.
Right.
Gotcha.
That sticker was also made the night of the Katie Valenzuela and Steve Hansen debate, where Kempa and I were trying to drink as much wine as possible before going to that debate.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like, can we get one more glass of wine in before we have to go to this
time?
thing? Do we have to? Can we do it? Yeah, we can probably do it.
And it was
Yeah.
the right move because thanks to us that night, she won the race.
That's right. It's all because of us.
And
It was because of your
Garlfield.
wine
In
drinking in
Garlfield.
particular.
It was because
Yeah.
you got the blessing of Garlfield.
I think it was the wine that did it.
Yeah.
Also
There's a
that.
certain consumption threshold over which Katie automatically wins, and they hit that target.
We hit it.
So thank you.
Good
Thank you
work,
for your-
guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very happy just to see that we're getting some traction on the internet. I didn't know how to do this. I don't know a thing about what's that SEO or whatever, but now the people of Boulevard Park are finding Garlfield and they're rising up to speak out to us, either positively or negatively. We're still not sure. But thank you, dear Instagram user, for that little bit of commentary.
Yeah.
And is
What do you
the L
guys?
intentional?
Is
I'm
what?
sure it was not. It must not be.
Okay,
But
I
if it
wasn't
is,
sure if
then
there
my
was-
hat is off.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was like Icon has cheeseburger, if there was like some intention to the mistake. So I wanted to, because again, it could be layered and I'm missing the layers.
It could
right.
be.
No, totally.
We don't know. All I do know is that we're definitely on like a rocket ship path to fame now that we have been
Yeah.
featured in this person's Instagram thing. So
Well, now
get
that
ready for your lives to be different, guys. It's
I know,
gonna
I
be,
feel it already. When I go
Man.
to the grocery store, I feel like they know who I am.
People whispering, Garlfield.
Is that the Garlfield?
Is
guy?
that the Garlfield man?
Oh my god. But my read now is that there actually might be some people seeing these stickers out there that are so used to those like right-wing idiots coming into town, and they think that like we are among those idiots coming into town to like.
I think that's the point of having Garlfield there, because he lets you know that this is not like a right-wing thing, right?
It's a little tongue-in-cheek.
Right.
If Garlfield is anything, it's not far right.
Yeah, no.
All right. Can we start the show, please?
Yeah. All right,
We
boys
can.
and girls.
Shit. Let's start it.
Voices, the things they said, voices, some from those dead, all the voices heard. Voices, things we say, voices, they're in your head, all the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You've got Kempa.
And Skylar.
And Shannon.
And Flo.
Yay.
And I'm drinking Vizzy this time instead of White Claw.
Breaking the law.
Yeah.
But
Breaking the
Refusing
law,
to
breaking
conform.
the claw.
You know,
Breaking
this
the
is what
law.
happens during COVID-19 when you order your groceries online and they substitute things. So the claw, last time they just substituted one claw variety, pack 2 for pack 1. But this time we got 2 new types. So I'll be trying those out over the next few shows.
good. I can't wait to hear about it. Claw demand is apparently through the roof thanks to us.
Right.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're welcome,
By the way.
White Claw. Yeah.
White claw sales
I see it everywhere.
skyrocketing.
Everyone.
And this is the blackberry and lime. So cheers to that flavor. It's quite good.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's good to know. All right.
We're just gonna include like
They do
reviews of all
2
the
different
seltzers.
flavors. They do flavor fusions.
They do 2 flavors and 3 options per pack.
Ooh.
So there is pineapple mango in this pack, and the blackberry lime, and then also a watermelon blueberry, I think.
I should try that out. Maybe on the next show I'll mix in like my lime claw with like
Mhm.
A raspberry.
a raspberry or something.
Yeah.
Make a raspberry lime claw concoction.
Yeah.
A concoction.
That's how I make rosé. I put
Concoction.
red wine and white wine and just see how
Yeah.
it
You make
goes.
rosé. That's how
Yeah.
you make your own homemade rosé.
You put some vodka in there,
And ice cubes. Just make it a whole
Eyeball it,
thing.
Really.
some
yeah.
OJ.
Oh,
A little bit of triple sec.
all right.
Peach
Float a little
schnapps.
Grand Marnier over the top,
Right,
you know?
Well, yeah.
Vermouth. Whatever.
Bottle and Barlow's
Tip
been
an
closed
upside
for a
down
while. We're all
Corona.
trying to get creative.
I just want to see someone like show up to the show with one of those like big ass like margarita cups with just like full of claw.
Like
Like
a full
in the
12
screen.
pack of claw in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like the upside down claws so that it just fills up as you drink it.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about making drinks at home, but the thing that I don't hear people talk about is like making like cannabis infused drinks at home. Like there's all this like do it yourself, but I never hear about that at all. And I'm really surprised.
Yeah, I guess I don't either.
Most people like
Huh.
bake.
But yeah, most people, but I'm not hearing about people at home like, and I made a new, because I know the beverage industry was like really trying to make their, cannabis drinks.
Mhm.
Like pop.
Have any of you guys ever tried one of those
version.
cannabis drinks?
I have
Yes.
not.
They're pretty good. Honestly, I got some like mineral water or something from one of the dispensaries one time. And it was like, I mean, it was pretty mellow. Like I'm a huge lightweight with that stuff, so I don't need very much at all to be having a real wild time. But like one bottle of this like sparkling water with the infusion was like pretty nice and like a pretty mellow time for me. Which I guess
Comparable
probably
effect to an edible?
much less intense.
Mm.
than
Oh,
an
okay.
edible. Yeah.
Huh.
What
That's my
about start
fear.
time?
It was much faster. So
Okay.
like,
The
that's
doctor-
my
the
problem with
doctor is in.
edibles is that like I feel like you eat an edible like Wednesday evening and then by like Saturday afternoon all of a sudden it kicks in
It
on
kicks
you and
in,
it's like
that's
way
right.
more intense than like you were counting on. At least that is my experience with it. But like I said, I'm a huge lightweight, so
Yeah, same. This is why none of this interests me because, I eat like a nibble of a brownie and I'm like hiding under my bed and I'm like, this is me now. I've gone crazy forever. And so
I just live here now.
I'll stick with
under
the
my
White Claw.
bed.
Yeah.
I had a disaster like that once where I had an edible. It was way too much, so I just went to bed because I was basically just trying to run away from it. So I was like, all right, if I just go to sleep, it'll be all right. And I woke up and was still just as high as I had been, and like that was my whole day that
fuck
day
that.
too. It's like, well,
Yeah.
maybe this is not the thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, shall we get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So today we figured we would dive a little bit into kind of what makes the soul of any given government lay bare, which is our budget. And I've been thinking a lot about this the last 2 months because you're watching things sort of dry up and you're watching people get really scared and stressed out and responding in different ways. And this sort of raised tension, the raised temperature, and this feeling that we're down a path towards something, yet none of us know what it is. It kind of reminds me of that first stanza of that classic Yeats poem, The Second Coming, where he says, turning and turning into the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Near anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. That's another poem. That stanza is borrowed by a classic Sacramento writer, Joan Didion, in her book named after the final couplet, Slouching Towards Bethlehem. She talks about how the center cannot hold, and the 60s were kind of this other crazy time where we didn't know what direction things were going. And it does feel like we're getting pulled in all these different directions, and something's got to give, right? And I think our budget is kind of the first space where that is beginning to show. On a national level, I have zero faith. I don't know about any of you.
Oh, I know. I trust the federal government to be doing really good work here.
Yeah.
I think they have my full trust.
Yeah, we all love them here. I
Yeah.
thought.
But here in California,
solid feds. Yeah.
I feel more comfortable critiquing and, speaking out about what California politicians are doing, because like they're not as like wildly evil as like the politicians on the federal level. Like I feel like a lot of them here, I don't know, you can at least speak to them, and it's at least closer to home, right? It's right in our back door.
Right. They're like Nancy Pelosi evil, not like Jeffrey Dahmer evil,
Right. Which is
okay. I'm gonna go with it. I like that.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm here for it.
It's oligarchy, sort of oligarchic lays evil. It's like the banality of like sitting on my yacht and just like, oh, they'll be fine. They have wafers.
Right. Or like in the middle of a huge crisis, bringing cameras into your house to show off your like gigantic refrigerator that's full of ice cream that poor people have never even heard of.
That's so terrible.
Yeah.
It
So
really
good.
is.
I love it.
And her PR folks are like, how quirky and fun is our boss? Am I right? Fun.
Am I right? Huh?
I like it. Have you ever seen these guys do the ones where they'll do like, because AOC started doing these Instagram stories where she was like making food or whatever and like talking about, whatever, like policy that she was excited to like go over and whatnot. And it was like really, really good. And people loved it because it made her feel like one of us, And then you watch like other politicians who have been in the game for way too long, like try and cash in on some of that. And it's like Elizabeth Warren sipping a beer and she's like,
and like she was one of the better ones. It was still super awkward.
It was so awkward.
But I do sometimes think that part of that is also a generational thing, right? So obviously the listeners who caught last Thursday's episode was my mom's 70th birthday, and we had this big Zoom party for her, and it was really fun to watch like her friends who are her age try to navigate this, but they weren't engaging in the way that younger people were. Like younger people were a lot more natural on the video. And so I think the same thing is probably true here, that AOC is both naturally gifted at connecting with people in ways that some politicians just aren't, but she's also a more native user to these platforms.
Right,
so it's not quite as awkward for her to do it. And
sure.
And it's the way that like your mom signed.
We lost her.
My mom still ends mine with "Love Mom," right?
We didn't.
You cut out for a minute there, Flo.
So
did I?
It's like when your mom what?
What I was saying was it's like when your mom like signs her text messages or her social media posts, right? Like it's this thing where they don't quite know how this works and they're doing really formal things from other settings that they think will carry over, and it's not that, right?
Yeah. I do enjoy the "love mom" at the end of her text messages.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
It's like we should all do that, but also, Mom, stop it.
I can't wait till my parents are like to the age where you just turn caps lock on and you never turn it back off.
Yeah. I think my mom turned 61 yesterday, and she is like an internet. She like works on she's on a computer all the time. She's on the soch. So she doesn't have.
Your mom's savvy, yeah.
Yeah, my mom's all over it. The thing about my mom is she would rather FaceTime than anything else. Like she would rather be on the video. Whereas my dad is like, if you send me a text message, I'm going to send you a bill for 10 cents.
That is so funny. It's just cute to watch the different generations, because my grandmother, before she passed, every time she would call me, like obviously I have her number saved, and so I'd answer the phone and say, "Hey, Grammy," and she'd say, "How'd you know it was me?" Yeah, it's gonna be a long conversation, Grandma.
And like, I think once you get to a certain age, like the stuff does start to feel a little daunting. But like I have a theory about the all caps, and like maybe some boomers are doing it, but I think that was specifically a silent generation thing because that was them finally finding their voice.
I love it.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, that's
that
as
out.
strong
I
a
love it.
theory as any other, I suppose.
Oh wait, no, silent. How old were they?
That's like pretty old, man.
So they were above the boomers?
Yeah.
Yes, they're older than the boomers.
Okay. And then before them was the greatest, right?
The greatest.
Yeah, so
Yes.
okay, no, this theory still stands, guys.
Yeah, silent.
Yeah.
That's some
Because
pretty
our oldest
old
boomers
folk.
are what, 74 now?
Mm-hmm.
So it's everybody over 74. And this was a couple of years ago too that they were really big into the all caps. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Boomers know how to meme. Their memes are generally pretty bad.
Yeah.
My mom has good memes, so like she's one of the good ones, but they like as a whole, it's like I don't know if any of you know it, there's a Twitter account called Cropped Boomer Memes.
Oh yeah, I follow cropped boomer
One of the
images.
funniest things.
Oh, now I need to follow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just wildly
It's
extremely
aggressive
funny.
Republican boomers, and then like somebody randomly crops their memes to make it make no sense at all.
I think my favorite thing, and I feel like it's kind of gone by the wayside. I think we're kind of out of this part, but one of my favorite boomer meme things was when like they would just put memes of the Minions on like everything, and it didn't matter what the content of the meme was. It was like Minions with text on it. I think it was my favorite time for boomer created memes.
And sometimes like the expressions on the Minions' face didn't match what they were trying to convey.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I love a good bad meme.
Yeah.
But
there's a subreddit called The Right Can't Meme, and they just like find like the worst right-wing memes of all time and post them in it, and it is very, very funny.
that sounds
I
great.
love it.
So we got a little off track. We're here today to talk about the budget.
We never do that. We
Listen,
always
folks.
stay
A little
on
bit of
track.
levity sometimes.
Do you
This
think
is
that this
our-
is how it goes sometimes, like in the room when like Newsom's in there with whoever he's in there with, like talking about the budget, and they're like, well, let's take a break from this to talk about boomer memes
Yeah, and Minions.
I hope so.
and Minions.
You know, they've got a Universal Studios rep in the office, so then he shares his favorite Minion memes.
Right. Anyway, yes, back to the budget.
This is a Monday episode, folks, and I don't know if you know this, but our Tuesday ones, we like to be a little more fun. We like to just like enjoy each other's companies, and Friday ones we take a little bit more like, all right, we're gonna regiment this out. So yes, this is, you know, serious topics we're covering, but we also want to have fun here. So anyway, why don't we get into, there is some actual, in as much as this is a very painful budget to look at because we got nailed, right? We got nailed in this with this immediate recession at the beginning of this pandemic, and a lot of very important services are going to the wayside, and we'll get to those. But weirdly, one of the topics that we focus on the most here, again, you can thank us for this, was saved. That's a joke, yeah. Was saved.
You're welcome.
A lot of the money was, right? So homelessness, a lot of the money that Newsom had earmarked to go toward serving the homeless community, it actually looks like it's being saved in a pretty solid manner. Shannon, can you talk about the Cal Matters piece that came out that sort of outlined that?
Okay. Yes. But you know, we always say on this show, correct us when we fuck up. You know, we can correct each other when we fuck up. So no one go off and start playing Sudoku while I'm talking, because I might need some help.
Is that what you do when the rest of us talk?
No, I don't. I definitely don't.
Well, you've been quiet the last 2 episodes.
No, I think the last 2 episodes have been quiet because I'm just like, huh? When I'm
I think
quiet,
the last
it's
2
'cause
episodes, she's just been painting like a pupil and an iris onto her eyelids and going to sleep while we talk.
Apparently the listeners want more Shannon, so we are going to give the people what they want.
Yeah, and on the day when I like don't know which way is up and which way is down. So that's tight.
Understandable, and we will
up, down.
Thank you, Flo.
Up.
Got it.
I can always count on you for
always.
the real support. Yeah, so I mean, here's the thing, like the budget is always a subject that's like pretty intense, right? It's layered. This budget is particularly meaty as a result of the COVID crisis eking its way in just, weeks after the budget was introduced. So I guess what I want to start by saying in terms of homelessness is that we should remember that in California, we have 25% of the nation's individuals experiencing homelessness live right here, which is just over 150,000 people. And just over 2/3 of those folks are unsheltered. So it leaves the governor in a position of having to come up with a pretty hearty plan to support folks or to get folks off the street if that's in fact something that he's interested in doing, which we know that Newsom is interested in that, or so he says. We've actually talked about this in other episodes. Should I stop talking?
No, keep going.
Okay. Sorry.
Dave's gonna go get his Sudoku.
Yeah, he's gonna go grab his Sudoku book and chew. He's like 28 minutes. I need a fucking break. So in January, when the budget was introduced, we got from Governor Newsom a $750 million proposal as a one-time general fund option option, whatever. Support, I guess. That allocation. Thank you, Dr. Flo.
I got you.
Appreciate it. And I think a lot of us homeless and housing advocates were really concerned, like we were bracing for some really bad news, I think. I mean, I know I was, and there was a lot of buzz on the Twitter that things were going to be pretty shitty for us, or for the folks that we serve moving forward as a result of, I've got White Claw burps, as a result of COVID and what that has done to the money for our state. But really surprisingly, we have found that not a lot is changing. The stream of funding is changing a little bit. So there have been cuts to, like, the idea prior to COVID was that there were going to be mixed income and also mixed income housing was going to be built. And then also there was a proposal, or there was the governor was giving a push for more housing to be built near public transit, and those sorts of things like have been withdrawn. But what the governor is still is saying is that, like, we're going to use that $750 million, only this is coming from the federal relief package, and 150 million of that, I can't remember if that's right or not, but that has already been spent, leaving about 600 million to be spent in the coming weeks and months. It does, I guess, this whole thing sort of begs the question, because of where the money is coming from, like what the sustainability of the plan is, what happens when all of that federal money runs out, what happens when all of the folks that we put into those housing units, which I should have mentioned this before, this money, the idea was that this money is going to be used to purchase hotels and motels in order to house people. And so we know in our community that is something that has been happening, though pretty slowly, in my opinion. And so what happens when the money runs out and they can no longer support those hotels or motels? And what that looks like, I think, really is like we're talking about staffing, because the money is to purchase those hotels and motels. So local governments would own those spaces, or NPOs, nonprofit organizations, would own those spaces. And they have this money from the current budget to help support them in terms of staffing and infrastructure. Yeah, but what happens when that money runs out? I think the other thing that is not addressed, and this Cal Matters article points it out, is what do we do with all of these folks who are missing payments, like missing rent payments, and landlords who are missing mortgage payments? Like, these are things that really do have to be addressed when we talk about a state budget in specifically in the line items of housing and homelessness, and those things are not addressed.
I think that's a biggie. And you know, even Joe Biden has come out and said we need to put an end to rent and mortgages right now. And so when Joe Biden is to your left, Gavin Newsom, maybe you should think more deeply on kind of what you're doing and how you're approaching this. If people can't pay their rent, if you can't pay your mortgage, you are a step away from being on the streets, and then we have a much, much larger population and much, much larger problem. So I don't think, again, the center cannot hold, right?
Well, I mean, the other side of it too is that the protections that have been provided, like it is good that people cannot be kicked out into the street right now for being unable to pay their rent. But it's ultimately just as untenable if you're expecting people to pay their rents back, to expect somebody who's been unemployed for like 4 or 5, 6, 7 months to like all of a sudden at the end be like, all right, cool, the crisis is over, so that'll be $12,000. Like that's not going to work. So there's got to be some kind of other plan, you know.
The initial plans were going to give them like 4 months after it was over to repay those. And it's like, that's totally not possible for a whole swath of the population.
Well, yeah, if it's $12,000, that's 3 G's a month. Like, I mean, which might be high for 4 months, but either way, like that's
right.
Yeah.
And then like I think they mentioned in this piece, you know, possibility of like a decade to pay it back. But it's like, why are we putting our lower classes deeper and deeper in debt when our state alone has, what is it, 165 billionaires as of May 8th of this year.
And that's soon to be a trillionaire.
Well, that's in Washington.
He's in Washington,
yeah.
No, Jeff Bezos, he just bought that house in LA.
Oh, good. We'll tax him then too.
He's
Great.
about to be a trillionaire.
I didn't know he bought a house in LA.
Yeah, and it's like the most expensive house ever.
Good.
Of course it is.
Good for him.
And it's like less than 1% of his wealth.
He's making money hand over fist right now.
Well, now he's going to eclipse Larry Ellison of Oracle as the richest Californian, because he only is worth $67 billion. So Bezos will be worth $1 trillion.
Step it up, Larry.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like the money's there to serve folks, and it's astounding to me that you know, I guess it's not surprising anymore, but it's just astounding to me that more people aren't radicalized to this fact when so many people are in pain right now.
I was thinking as I was reading up on this stuff, like there's all this talk about, you know, using this federal funding to buy hotels and motels to get people in during this crisis. And along the lines of, you know, talking about renters who are having to put off their rent payments that they will eventually have to owe back at, you know, at this point, we're looking at three months at least. 3 months of rent will be owed. Like those folks are going to need the hotels and the motels that are being purchased, but there's not a fucking plan for how to pay for that shit after this crisis is over, after that federal emergency money runs out. Like, so we're just setting up this system that is, surprise, you know, just like completely fucked for everyone.
For most of us, there's a few of us who are like living beyond like anyone's wildest dreams since the dawn of man.
Yeah. I just like I can't stop thinking about just like the domino effect of the injustice of fucking charging people rent right now.
Yeah.
So that was the good news.
Oh yeah, sorry. You know, here's the thing. I don't know if people say they want to hear more from me. One, like I feel like it's not always super organized because I'm like thinking a million miles a minute, but also it's cynical usually. So
that's fine. Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, your profession is a very difficult one, and I think cynicism is one of the few ways you can get through your work week, you know?
Oh yeah, it's my chief coping skill.
I think like ultimately what the listeners really want is just to hear those White Claw burps, you know?
I have so many of them.
I think that's like part of why people are clamoring for you. They need to hear those burps.
Better than the farts. I got you, listeners.
Flo, are you
when I talk about farts?
Froze up.
Oh, there she goes.
Okay.
Oh wait, here
there
she
you
is.
are.
And she's back.
Yes. Well, why don't we? I mean, is there anything else we want to cover on this? Like, what I'm hearing from you effectively is, yes, it's good that he didn't scrap all of the things he had, you know, sort of earmarked towards homelessness and ameliorating some of the issues, particularly in, you know, in a state that it has a quarter of the nation's people experiencing homelessness. But you have major concerns, and you have concerns about the sustainability of this.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the only other thing I think that might have maybe is worth mentioning and could have some traction is this Cal Matters article talks about Assemblyman Miguel Santiago, a Democrat out of LA, who's proposed legislation that's backed by the big city mayors to spend $2 billion annually for shelters, permanent housing, and homeless services. Now, he does not, I didn't do any extra clicking to find out much more about that, except that he has not identified a funding source for that idea. But it's the one thing that is like forward thinking and potentially sustainable if the forward thinking is done well. And that's what, so my biggest concern is just that we're not really thinking long term about how this shit's gonna work.
And keep in mind, listeners, if you didn't already know, our state Senate is a super duper majority of Democrats. It's 61 Democrats, 18 Republicans, and 1 independent in office right now. Or that's our assembly, sorry. Our Senate is, I believe, 29 Democrats and 11 Republicans? Like yeah. Mm-hmm. So anything that Shannon, brings up relating to that, relating to a Democrat presenting something, the only roadblock to that Democrat's bill coming and saving and helping people is other Democrats. And it's something that we should really remember here. Our state now, there are so few Republicans in the state that 33 out of 40 Senate districts are majority Democrat voters, registered voters, 64 to 16 in assembly districts. So it's like, Democrats claim that they're the party for the people. So, they've got the show here, right? They've got all of the statewide offices. So if they're going to perform and if they're going to take care of people the way that Democrats claim they can and should, this is time. And
this is why progressives this is where a lot of people, I think, assume that Democrat and progressive are kind of like the same thing. And this is you know, I mean, just another example of how that is absolutely not true. And voting for Democrats does not mean that you're voting for progressive policies.
That's correct.
So lean on them every day you can. I think that's a great bill to sort of form as a centerpiece for at least this episode. So thank you for that, Shannon.
And I mean, while you're talking about bills, you know, Assemblymember Chu really has been trying to get this mortgage interest deduction on vacation homes passed. It's failed in the other years that he brought it up, but it basically would make it so that if you own a home and then you also own a vacation home, that you would not be able to deduct the interest you pay on the mortgage on your vacation home. And so that could raise, you know, a lot of money, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars if that were to, you know, to be passed. So I think the real challenge with the overall budget is that you know, we've had to reduce spending, but there's not been a push for increasing revenue to fill those goals. It's all been about cutting. And if we have, you know, this $2 billion proposal that Santiago, you know, has on the table, we have to start talking about how we're going to fill that. And it can't just be from cutting from other places. It also needs to be from other revenue sources. And your vacation home seems like one that's ripe for the picking.
Yeah.
Right.
George Skelton of the LA Times wrote a piece saying effectively that, and that he claims that, you know, there's no appetite for taxing, you know, right now. But I will say I have a huge appetite for taxing. I know exactly who we should tax.
Right.
And I think there's plenty of appetite there.
Well, yeah, and it's obvious to anybody
that
you start taxing those guys, and it pays for like basically every fucking problem we have in this country, right? I mean, a lot of those problems begin and end with the fact that the people who have all the money don't contribute to society.
Right. They are not doing their part in the social contract. So it's all there. You know where the money is to take care of Californians. We know where it is. So why don't we jump to, and we know that Democrats should be doing the right thing, right? So let's jump to Flo. You know, you've been looking, I think you've been doing some deep dives on this, the state budget, and you had some real concerns as a public health expert on where funding was getting cut. So can you tell us about some of the spaces where it's getting cut?
Yeah. I mean, overall, you know, it's amazing. I think, you know, Shannon touched on this, that the budget that we have as the May revise looks drastically different than the budget that came out in January. And it's not often that that's the case. You certainly expect some changes, but not like this. And so, you know, the big thing is that, you know, while some of the money for housing has been defended, and we really, really support that, there's some things that are being cut that are going to have a pretty big impact. And again, as we just mentioned, you know, we're not filling those holes with new revenue sources. So we're cutting away a lot of things that are going to be important to people. For one, you know, we are in a place now where we're going to be cutting some of the public health programs, including the home visiting program, including the maternal mental health program, and including the Black infant health program. And so all of those are going to see some pretty significant budget cuts, some of which had just gotten their money restored from the last recession, and now they're going through cuts again. You know, there still is a shortfall in terms of what's needed in the public health funding. Obviously, it's been increased since January, but what's needed in terms of actually adequately responding to COVID-19 and preparing for future threats as well, because part of what we've been asking for a while is the money to be able to do some advanced planning so that when we have to trigger these systems in the future, it doesn't take so long to get them online. So those are some of the big ones. And then even, you know, there has been some cut funding from the early learning programs and education. And so it's just right now, it feels like a really challenging time when it comes to the budget, in part because most of what we're seeing are cuts to things that people were really looking forward to at the beginning of the year. And there's not as much in the way of additional revenue sources to be able to maintain some of those. And obviously, while, it sometimes doesn't always feel like it, every single cut is a person, is an experience, is an investment that is going away from people who most need it. And we know, because there are inequities in our society, that the people who most need it are always the most impacted.
Can you talk about what subsets of the community that entails? Who are the ones that are going to be most adversely affected?
Well, as an example, the earned income tax credit was examined as one of the ways to be able to provide additional funding to families in California, and in particular to be able to expand it so that our undocumented folks who pay into that are actually able to tap in and enjoy those resources. And that expansion has not been included. There's not additional money for the families that were already getting earned income tax credit, which was on the table earlier this year, and certainly not the expansion to our undocumented folks, who we know are making up a good chunk of the lost jobs and the lost wages, or on the other side are essential workers and are putting themselves at highest risk. So it's all kind of complicated in this way, because when we cut money for food, and when we cut money for education, and we cut money for or we don't ensure the adequate housing protections that Shannon was talking about with rental assistance and that sort of thing, we harm the very people who this economy relies on. And it also has racial undertones to it because of the whole history of how things work. And so, our Black and our Latinx populations are most likely not to be working from home, and make up a pretty big, substantial portion of our, hold on one second. Sorry about that. That was an alarm. Let me start over. And our Black and Latinx populations make up a substantial number of our essential workers, making up somewhere around 20 to 30% of our food service workers, our postal workers, our healthcare workers. And so when we look at those numbers, it's really staggering. And also, a quarter of Black and Latinx folks rely on public transportation as their primary means of transportation. So in the way that they get to work and in the work that they're doing, they are more likely to be at risk. And so when we cut these social programs, it really does impact folks. And especially when we're talking about cutting wages as well, which is on the table, a 10% reduction for state workers. So this has some pretty far-ranging implications, and the people who are going to be harmed most are those who already were in, the lower stratus of our economic system.
Right.
Yeah.
It was something that was. Oh, so go ahead, Jenna.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it was something that I had never heard of before that was in that column that Dave was talking about earlier by George Skelton. Is, I guess, according to this guy, a common way that Sacramento finds money when the purse is short is that they Social Security and whatnot. They do factor in. They calculate inflation, and it adds like a cost of living adjustment to what you get paid for Social Security. And like people who are on Social Security, right? We're talking about people who are getting like less than $12,000 a year, right? Which is like ideal.
Right.
Like the idea of Social Security is that it's enough money to live on, which obviously that's not true to begin with. But what these guys do, and what Newsom is doing now, is they'll come in and skim the cost of living stuff off the top of it. So it keeps people at like earning Social Security at a lower rate than what it should be. Right. And they just put that into the kitty, and they can kind of get away with it because these are pretty old and infirm folks who probably aren't going to show it. It's not going to cost you the election.
They're not unionizing.
Fuck them over,
They're not donors to their campaigns, so they're the first ones on the chopping block. I mean, this is how austerity Democrats and the neoliberal establishment, even throughout Europe, has worked for decades. You know,
Right.
these are the folks that they don't have to be beholden to. So when push comes to shove and when things get hard, they're the first ones that you know, their services get cut to the floor.
Right.
And it's really interesting how that happens, because the way that they take the cost of living money is basically the state just doesn't contribute its portion, because technically they can't take away the federal portion, they just won't give their portion, and they use that and repurpose it. I think what's most I think what's most challenging about all of this is just sort of it's this idea, and I've been using this example a lot, of we're all in this together. And the example I've been using is the Titanic, because it's like everybody is on the ship and the ship is going down. But if you look historically, the first class passengers survived at a much higher rate than the third class passengers. And the first class women and children survived at the highest rate, and the third class men survived at the lowest rate. And so, right, so there's an intersection of like what your identity was, what your social position was, that determines whether or not you survive a sinking ship. And the same thing is playing out right now, that yes, we're all in this together. Yes, everybody is impacted in some way, but some people's impact is, I have to stay home in my really cushy house, and I'm now on track to become a trillionaire in 6 years. And the other ways are people sitting at home saying, okay, if these rental protections end in 12 days, we owe $4,000 in rent plus rent that's due, and we have had our jobs cut. Right. And so that's not the same impact. And we have to recognize what that means in terms of our budgets and who really needs our support. And instead of messaging that we're all going to have to make some cuts, that signals for the people who are barely holding on that this is going to be hard and we have to give something up. But what ends up happening is that the people at the top give up nothing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the list of cuts in this multi-pronged approach to dealing with the gap, the list of things are like, you know, collective bargaining units reducing pay by 10%, and health programs, and preschools and childcare, and CalWorks, in-home supportive services, things like this. Like these are all of the programs. These are all of the programs that year after year are being skimmed off the top anyway. And so now when we're in a situation, where there is a huge deficit and they're trying to make ends meet, they're just pulling even more off the top of those programs. And really, I think, it was said earlier by Flo or Dave, I don't remember who said it, but this brings up the issue of like POC communities who are hardest hit by this stuff. Like what is the survival there? Like how you think about like Black infant death, and we're pulling money away from programs that get out there and are ensuring that Black babies aren't dying, or that Black moms aren't dying. Like,
so you pulled the maternal health, the mental health support, you pull Black infant health, you're pulling back on wages, you're just really thinking about the totality of how this is going to be impacting people in the state.
When he was presenting this today, I don't know if you heard the quote, but he said, there's a human behind every single number, a dream that's being deferred, a dream denied. Like, did this fucking guy know that he's like invoking Langston Hughes right now? And the irony of that, and that like he's kind of saying that we're okay with doing that to these populations.
Yeah. I mean, I almost wish that the budget was cut
knew.
Proportionally, like based on whether or not it impacts the most privileged to the least privileged. The most privileged get the highest cuts, and the least privileged get the lowest cuts. Like, I wish there was like an impact statement that the Department of Finance provided for like, who does this benefit?
Right.
How much of our, and as we were prepping for the show, I wanted to look this up and I didn't, but how much fucking money out of our state budget goes to the militarization of our police forces throughout the state?
I know that LA is increasing their police budget while getting rid of social services right now.
Of course, like, and what the fuck? Like, this is a thing that is like a huge injustice, right? Like, I feel like the police force could use a little less money, you know?
Yeah, how much? We covered this like right before Corona took off, but how much was the bear claw?
$4 million.
Right. And that's like a bunch of services that people can really use, or the police can have a fucking like off-road urban assault vehicle.
Yeah, for those listening, the bear claw is apparently that's what it's called.
The bear cat.
Bear cat is a tank that the Sacramento police bought because they thought they needed it, apparently. And city council was like, yeah, let's get that.
With Measure U funds, by the way.
With Measure U funds that were supposed to go to our communities that needed it most. Like,
Right.
It is so bald-faced galling.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's especially like, I know we're kind of doing this a lot on this show, but like almost every single one of the programs that Flo just laid out that are being cut, and all of these services and everything could be paid for by just Jeff Bezos himself, and he would still have billions and billions and billions of dollars. Like he could fix all of these problems tomorrow by himself and still have more money than 100 people could spend in 1,000 lifetimes, and he just doesn't.
Now
Like,
that he lives here,
like
he will
we
more
are
than-
much like the attitude is, look, it's his money, and if he just wants to hoard it in an offshore account where it doesn't do anything to like give back to the community that made him for him, then that's his right. Like, that's why should he be punished for being wealthy? You know, for guys like that, giving back to the community is a punishment. You know, for the rest of us, it's our civil duty to pay our taxes.
Right. So the budget in January that was proposed by the governor was $222.2 billion, which included a $5.6 billion surplus.
Yep.
Jeff Bezos could write a fucking check
Yeah, he's worth 5 times that.
for the entire state to recover from what has happened. I mean, and you know, that doesn't
and not
more
be
than
impacted
recover.
at all.
Right, and
His
still
life
have
would
more
change
money than
in
anybody
no
could possibly.
material way, like at all.
I mean, they're talking about a cut to $217 million cut to in-home supportive services. Like, write a check, bro. You know, I mean, all of these cuts that are being that are attached to these programs that benefit communities, poor communities, or POC communities. Like, Bezos doesn't have to cover the entire state budget, just cover this stuff.
Well, and obviously, like, you know,
services.
Bezos is an easy boogeyman of this because he's the most obvious example of it. But there's like 100 of these guys in the state who
But
the
it's
same
also
thing
because
applies
Bezos,
to, you know.
But Bezos is also like benefiting from this,
from a pandemic.
From a pandemic. Like he is one of the businesses who does better now than before, because all the trips that people would have gone to the store for, people are now like, I'll just order it on Amazon.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's also
Can I put in context,
go for
Bezos? So California has 165 billionaires. That would be, if we were our own country, we would have the 3rd most billionaires in the world out of all the countries, between China above us and Germany below us. That's just our state. These billionaires are worth, in collective, $723.7 billion. Bezos moving here more than doubles that. He's worth more than all of them combined. So he is a boogeyman, but like,
I have Jeff Bezos' net worth right now on Google at $145.4 billion.
Right.
So he's supposed to be a trillionaire by when? Okay, sorry.
2026.
Okay, so we got some years ahead of us. Okay.
Yeah.
So he won't more than double that, but he will be more than double that within like 5 years. Sorry, everyone. Thank you for that. So him moving in, though, I mean, like, that's huge, right? And he's worth more than double the highest billionaire right now in the state, Larry Ellison of Oracle, who's worth $67 billion. So, or close.
He's worth more than what we spend on transportation, natural resources, the legislative, judicial, and executive branch, labor and workforce development, and K through 12 education, probably higher education and human services almost combined.
Right.
And he doesn't care. He doesn't care that he's
No,
not.
He's worth our state. He's worth a good chunk. At the point at which you can like reasonably describe my salary or my net worth as a portion of the 6th largest economy's budget is the point at which you have too much money.
Right. Yes.
Right. Oh, 100%.
Well, I mean, the thing too, right? Like, because we have no problem when the feds cut that stimulus check to us, it was like $1,200 or something a person for us, but like another like 18,000 per of those checks were going to super wealthy people. And we act like, oh, well, like businesses got to do this and they provide jobs and blah, 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 blah. But the other side of that is that if you throw a bunch of money at somebody like Jeff Bezos, he's just going to move it offshore. It goes in his like dragon cave that is just full of stacks of money that is untouchable. He'll never touch it. It's not for there's no considerable purpose. It's just so like when I Google his net worth, that number comes up. If you give that kind of money to like one of the 4 of us or anybody else who like basically isn't Bezos, that money goes back into the economy. That's why it's called a stimulus, is because you give me $1,000, I'm going to go to Safeway and I'm going to spend it on groceries. That supports like farming and like, everybody who stocks the shelves at Safeway. I'll be out spending it at local shops. It like spreads it out around and it stimulates the economy. When you just throw all that money at somebody like a Bezos, it just disappears. It just gets pulled right up out of the system. And all it is a number for us to Google, when you want to get mad.
Yeah, and this is a guy who's still like, that is his net worth even after his divorce, where his wife was, I don't know what it's called, alimony? No, whatever the fuck that shit's called when you get a divorce and the person gives the other person monies.
I think that's alimony.
Like,
I think that's a payment that you make.
Whatever. Like, she was entitled to some of that money. She took a shit ton of it, was hella rich all of a sudden, and he still got money to be a squillionaire in 2026. Yeah. Why is
she was immediately like in the top 20 most wealthy people just for divorcing him, I think.
We got to get at Bezos.
I want to divorce Jeff Bezos.
Wow. Right.
I want to marry Jeff Bezos and spend his money too. Dang.
I want to drag Jeff Bezos out into the street and put him in a guillotine and then spend his money.
Yeah.
You have to marry him first though, right?
Not if you have a guillotine.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, Skylar, marry, fuck, kill Jeff Bezos. Is that how the game works?
That's how that works.
That's a good one. And I say marry and then spend all of his money.
Okay.
Because he's probably going to make me sign some sort of prenup, but the prenup doesn't apply while we're married. So I could just be married to him and spend all of his money, and then he divorces me, and then I take the rest of it and spend all of that too.
You could talk him out of a prenup, I think. If you were like willing to like use the powers of seduction, I feel like you could get him to agree to
use my feminine wiles.
Mm-hmm.
Free them nipples.
Okay, everyone.
Totally.
Marry, fuck, kill Bezos, Zuckerberg, or who's the Microsoft guy?
Gates.
Oof.
I'd marry Gates. Kill Zuckerberg, fuck Bezos.
Bezos, killing Gates and fucking Zuckerberg. And I'm killing Gates because he's promised when he dies to give all his money away. So that benefits everyone. and I'm fucking Zuckerberg because he's the most fuckable of the three. And then I'm marrying Jeff Bezos so that while I'm married to him, I can give away all of his money.
Smart. I would marry Gates, kill Bezos, and I would also fuck the Zuck.
Fuck the Zuck.
Oh my gosh.
I would marry Bezos. I would marry Bezos. I think I'd. Oh God, sorry, I'm thinking about this way too much. I don't want Bill Gates to die over Zuckerberg. I just really can't.
He's a nice guy. That's the problem.
I think I'd kill Zuckerberg.
But his money does so good when he's dead.
I know, but he's gonna die. Like he's older.
He did this to himself.
Gonna die soon anyway.
He did it to himself. He made his death worth more than his life. No, that's not true.
You're right. I know. And that's where I get tripped up too. That's where I get tripped up too.
In this game, because Bezos has some like fuckboy clause in his like will that all of his money goes to the douchiest person he knows, right? Like that's the case.
Yeah. All right, Shan, where'd you land?
I'm still landing with Zuckerberg gets the axe, I think.
Yeah.
You say axe or ass?
Don't you want to know?
Two different answers, yeah.
Axe.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
That's still unclear based on all the places in the U.S. that I've lived. Which one you said?
That was a really good MFK.
Yeah.
Round.
It was a good one.
That's good.
This is making me miss being at a bar with friends.
Yes. Aww.
Yeah, there was a while where what was it? Nate used to say like murder, fuck, kill.
Yeah, so you were killing two of them, and it's like, Nate, that's not how it works.
Like, that's not it.
It's very aggressive, dude.
He lives with someone who likes true crime. Maybe that's it.
I started listening to a very, what is it called? A very fatal murder.
yeah, the Onion podcast.
Oh my gosh. I started listening to it last night and I was cracking up.
Good.
So our primary question is, have they ever been on a podcast before? Like, no, that's not a primary question. Oh, it's so funny.
All right, I'll check that out because Oh Hello is rounding out its final episode next week. So
I just finished today that Nate recommended that podcast Wind of Change about the Scorpions and how like whether or not they were working with the CIA during the Cold War to create propaganda to like facilitate the bringing down of the Berlin Wall.
Right.
It's bananas as shit. It's definitely worth a listen. Yeah, it's a good rec.
Cool.
I'm listening to In the Dark, which is generally more of a true crime podcast, and right now they're focused on COVID in like Georgia, rural Georgia, and it is fascinating.
That sounds really interesting.
Look at us with all of our podcasts.
Yeah.
What are you? What's Skylar?
Well, I don't know. I do have something I want to share with you guys. I've been putting it off. It's a little bit of a. I don't want to bring the mood of the show down, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Man,
but
we're all friends.
This is
here.
always a safe space.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, guys. It's just, I know it's that. It's me. It's my pride. I think it's I think there's some toxic masculinity in there where I can't, let anybody see my vulnerability or anything like that. But, I'll just get right to it. I'm unemployed right now. I haven't been working. I lost my job due to COVID-19. And there, you know, I have a lot to say about it. There's been a lot of ups, lots of downs. It's been a wild time. But speaking of time, that is a thing now that I have in abundance. And I've been using all of this surplus of time that I have to listen to all these great podcasts and read all these great articles that have come out through Voices River City as we've gone. But I'm starting to run out, and to be honest, this is one of the only things that's kind of keeping it. It's one of the only things that gets me out of bed in the morning, and I'm almost through it. So I need Dave. What can I do, man? I need more of this. I need more of this content. Where can I go to find more of this great Voices content that is getting me through this this trying time?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, for anyone out there, I think really the only answer if you are going through this as well is to seek out more Voices content. So I think that's a great question. We are on the internet at voicesrivercity.com. We have work going back 3 years that's really all over the place. Arts coverage, we have our Follow the Money project, we have really all sorts of things that cover the spectrum of Sac culture. Most recently, our iteration is the podcast, but we are expanding once more. So that's the place to find it there. We are on Instagram at Voices River City. Same thing on Twitter at Voices River City. We're on Facebook, Voices River City. We're on every podcast platform you can think of. And then, of course, if you want to help us out as low as $5 a month, go to patreon.com/voicesrivercity and just be a member and, you know, pay $5 a month, which is basically a beer at the bar that none of us are going to right now. And it helps keep us going. It helps us, the good sound quality we have, you know, the equipment from that. It helps us be able to pay for, you know, our web pages and all the other things too. And it also helps us pay our writers. So to me, it's like, I've been astounded by how people have responded in recent months and even throughout all of this. So thank you to everyone. I am on Twitter at Kempa.
I'm on as Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4 YOU.
I am Shan N.D. Stevens.
And I am Flojaune. That's FLOJAUNE.
And
that is us.
I also think it's worth mentioning to people who are like new to Voices and kind of interested in what we do that we've kind of been dipping our toes into the cult thing a little bit. And I'm excited for one. Am kind of excited to see our cult kind of, you know, get some legs. So if you are interested in learning the real truth, then get in touch with us and we'll hook you up.
That reminds me of something. Remember, we were discussing sort of the TrueAnon podcast the other day. And I was like, oh, well, let's be careful on, you know, some of the things they discuss there. I actually think it's an interesting and fun podcast if you view it through that lens. But 538 did an episode today, I think, on what they call conspiracy theories. And I think they referred to TrueAnon as like full on just like conspiracy theory. So I thought that was very interesting. 538 going the full neolib route.
So. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, newsflash, 538 pundits are a bunch of whack idiots. I hate that. I used to listen to that podcast all the goddamn time and had to stop. It was making me too mad.
I still try to, in the same way that I still try to do it with Pod Save America, because it's like when they're not espousing their doctrine, they have some good takes and they have some good analysis.
I stopped listening to Pod Save America when the Tara Reid thing started happening. I was like, dude, I can't listen to these guys.
I haven't even tried that.
Oh, yeah. It's ugly, man. It sucks.
I stopped right around the time Bernie stepped out.
Yeah.
Flo, what?
What is Pod Save America's take? Like, what is their bend?
Oh, they generally are lockstep Democrats. So
they all used to work in the Obama administration.
Yeah,
like a bunch of them were like speechwriters for Obama and whatnot. So that's like, and now they're like podcast pundits.
And so what they want is a Democrat in presidential office. And so they're interesting because they'll tell you, you get to hear the Democrat talking points and then a little bit of how the sausage for those talking points is made. And I think that's always like worthwhile, especially in a state like California, when that's the party that runs the show. You should know what they're thinking.
Right.
But it can also be very, very frustrating if you are a progressive to listen to these guys like 4 neolibs talk about why the progressive agenda just isn't tenable right now, you know, because that's a lot of the show, or at least it was when Bernie Sanders was in the news. I don't think they're probably doing it as much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'll listen to people I really don't like because I want to know what they're thinking, because I think that's helpful.
Yeah.
That's why I listen to Alex Jones all the time. I love it.
Every day.
Every day.
I hear he's going to eat our leftist asses.
Yeah, like corn on the cob.
Turn him up.
We'll
share that link for.
Yeah.
I see Flo's face. I'll share that.
I'm confused.
All right, I think it's time to bail out, guys.
All right, let's call it.
Let's call it a show. It's been lovely. It's always lovely. What a treat!
Always lovely
to get to sit here with you, lovely people, and do this lovely show.
Yeah.
And for our lovely listeners, we love you guys.
And for the lovely Dean and the lovely Be Brave Robot.
Yeah.
Thank you for your music.
Yeah, we're having a good week with those guys. All right.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Stay safe.
Stay healthy.
Stay sane.
And stay away.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're cute. Bye. I've got to go wipe my watery ass allergy eye.
Whoa!
The direction that sounded like it was going.
Kept going because she was like, "I've got to go wipe," and I was like,